Right there, that is US 50, right on the other side of those railroad tracks. And in this video, you're gonna see about as complete of a exploration of US 50, at least the western half of US 50, as there is on YouTube. Here comes the semi-truck. And US 50 is an incredibly important road throughout the years, and it stretches all the way from the East Coast to the West Coast, and in some places it's called the loneliest road in America. We're definitely going to get to that. I get into some interesting adventures out there. I originally recorded this in 2023 and released it state by state, and in this compilation it's everything put together, starting in Kansas City, finishing up in Sacramento, and stopping at every dot along the way, including Ardell. This is Ardell, Kansas. So you're gonna see that later on in the video, and even if it's not a town, if it was on the map, we stopped and checked it out in this video. So hopefully you enjoy US 50, the western half of US 50 from beginning to end. Welcome to US 50. I'm about to document the western half of US 50 through the states of Kansas, Colorado, Utah, Nevada, and California. The entire US 50 covers about 3,000 miles from East Coast to West Coast, starting all the way in Maryland and ending in Sacramento, heading west. And this part of the trip is gonna be about 1,700 miles, and starting here at the Missouri-Kansas border. I'm in Leawood, Kansas, and it's the town that is basically, as soon as you cross over into Kansas, you're in Leawood, and it's pretty much a suburb of Kansas City. US 50 was started in the mid-1920s as part of the United States highway system. There were a bunch of roads that were started at that time, like Route 66, and then 50 and 40, there was a bunch of them, and 50 goes right through the middle of the country, so it was very popular. It was very important to connect East Coast to West Coast in the 1920s as people were trying to head west, and people started, the automobile started becoming more used. Rather than going on a train, people could hop in a car and drive west, and so roads like this were very important, and there were small towns that were connected along these roads all the way through. And then in the 1970s is when the interstate system was started, and that's when roads like US 50, and especially the more rural areas, were kind of bypassed, and a lot of those small towns started to get even smaller. Whenever I'm doing these road trips, I like to go to every town or every former town or every single little dot on the map that is near the road that I'm exploring. So we're gonna learn about a lot of different places, big and small. And actually the bigger places, like where I'm at right now, I will cruise through really quick and get out of the town and head kind of out into the wide open spaces as quick as I can. There's nothing really exciting at the beginning of this trip, because as we start on 50, we're on Interstate 435. So there's not really a big, sign to start. You're just flying across the highway, and right there at the Kansas border is where we will get started. We'll see a lot more interesting things than the beginning. So let's head out on US 50. Once again, we're starting out on interstate systems. We'll try to be on the two-lane roads and the original roads as much as we can, but in some places you just can't, because all that's left is the interstate. So hopefully we'll find a lot of two-lane roads and a lot of interesting places. So come along for the ride. Let's start US 50. I get a lot of questions about which map I'm using on my trips. So here's the map. Each state that I go through will be one of these. And so let me show you my route. We're looking at the green line here. So we'll be starting in Leawood, approximately. This is all Leawood right here. And we'll be taking that mostly expressway over. And every time you see like a line like that, it means I'm gonna go check out that town. And so mainly on expressway, and then we'll get off the expressway to go in to some other towns that are maybe actually more original Route 50 or US 50, and that'll take us on through to Gardner. you might wonder why I'm not going to stop in big cities and show you all the stuff to do in a big city. It's because there's lots of videos on YouTube. You know, if you want to know what to do in Kansas City, there's a lot better videos than this. I'm going to breeze through places like that and show you the more out-of-the-way places that don't get as much attention. From Gardner, we are on 56, which was the original 50. Here's the expressway, so we're going to stay there, and then right here there'll be a little bit split that I'll talk about when we get there. And so I'm not sure exactly where the original US 50 was in this range, but we're around there. We're going to go to towns that are kind of along it. Sometimes we're on the expressway and sometimes we're not, all the way down to Ottawa. Right here is kind of an interesting part of the road here in Kansas. I've been on 56 going through these last couple towns, and I mentioned how they were kind of connected a little bit. Well, when they originally started US 50, it split right here at this intersection now where it's 56 and 33. And it split, and there was a north US 50 and a south US 50. And the north US 50 went from here, you know, in the north, I guess, of Kansas, out and then connected back with Garden City in western Kansas. We're going to follow what's considered more, you know, US 50 today, which would be the old US 50 South. And this happened, you know, a lot of times in roads around the country. Like if you go through Dallas, there's a 35 West and a 35 East, I believe. And so this was a 50 North and a 50 South. We'll reconnect with that in a couple days, but we're going to continue on the southern route, which is today considered US 50. Just south of Ottawa, right here, this is old US 50. So we're gonna go on there, and all along there are some little towns and some ghost towns that'll be interesting to see. And we'll take that, it basically goes through Waverly, As you can see, we're basically running parallel with the expressway as we continue to go through towns, and then we reconnect with the expressway as we head into Emporia. Once we get through Emporia, there are a bunch of little towns all through here that we'll go check out. There's, once again, Old Highway 50 that splits there. This is the 2-lane road 50, and we'll take the old 50. As we roll through Emporia, we're about to hit the area called the Flint Hills, and I've done a lot of videos in this area, and it's just a beautiful area, very underrated area of Kansas that you might not realize as you're driving through US 50. Things start to open up as we get west of Strong City. The towns start to get a little farther away, and it's really pretty driving. A little corner of the map here through Florence, and then down to Peabody, and we're almost done. The final leg of today's trip takes us through Walton, and then we're gonna finish the day in Newton. That's the end of day one. We have reached Newton, Kansas, and this is only just a few minutes north of Wichita, which is where I live, so that's where I'm going to stay tonight. So no hotel tonight. The rest of the trip I'll be staying in hotels and showing you all along the way where I'll be staying. But tonight, I'm going to stay at my place, and then we'll get back up early tomorrow. We'll start heading west. We're back on US 50 here in Newton and heading west as we head, the entire trip. We've been in Kansas all day today. And basically, once you get to this part of Kansas, it's I guess you'd consider it western Kansas. It's pretty much central, but as we get going, it's certainly what people refer to as western Kansas. Yesterday, once we got going through the day, there were lots of small towns, and there was a lot of really cool old, towns. That's a lot of what we're going to see in Kansas, because there were so many old, pioneering towns here as people were moving west. And Kansas has tons of ghost towns, but it also has a lot of small towns that were built along these roads as they were developing, and some survived and some didn't. And so it's kind of fun to go through and see what's left, or if some of them are still, in good shape, like Newton. Newton's grown to be pretty large. As you can see, we'll hit a few small towns, and then 50 kind of goes around Hutchinson. As we left Newton, heading west on day 2, just along the road, there's this really interesting display of old gas station and oil stuff. So pretty cool. You can hear US 50 right there. We're literally on it. And it's a good representation of, probably a lot of the history of US 50 with all the old, gas stations and oil company signs. Right here is an interesting part. You can see 50 goes just north of all these towns, and all these towns right here are along the railroad where it says Trail West Road. And I'm guessing that the original 50 probably went through these towns, and maybe they just moved it north later, because you'd think they would go along the railroad there at that time. So we're gonna take that little south detour and check out those towns on through the end of this map over to Stafford. as I'm driving along, I'm finding there are lots of different versions of US 50, and then there's Old Highway 50, and then there's a road that'll just say 50. And what I'm assuming is, you know, 50 has had a bunch of different iterations, and now the main 50 is what you see on the maps, which is what I'm driving on right now. But when you follow the railroad, it was probably more along the railroad, and so you'll find, you know, bits and pieces of the old road. But it's not, like, I've not found maps that do a great job of showing, like, all these different options. So I'm just kind of figuring it out as I go. And so, for instance, the next town is St. John, I believe. And it's about 3 miles north of US 50, but it's right along the railroad. And I've also seen parts where it says Old 50 or Old Highway 50 north of this road as well. So we're gonna go ahead and go there because it probably was basically on US 50 at one point. I'm gonna continue, you know, taking little detours like that, and then we get over here to Kinsley. You can see 56, 183. Earlier in the first video, you remember I talked about where 56 and 50 split into north and south, and actually up here you can see 56, and then 156 branches off there at Larned. 156 was originally just 56, and that was the US 50 North section. And then eventually they made this connection here with Kinsley on 56 and named that 56. And that 156 goes on to Garden City to connect with 50. So different places where these roads eventually later on ended up connecting together. We've arrived to Kinsley, Kansas, and as you can see, we are at the halfway point between San Francisco and New York. Not the halfway point on this trip, or even the halfway point on US 50, but right in the middle of those two cities is Kinsley, Kansas. And very cool town. There's a lot to see. There's a little museum here. I'm gonna wander around and show you a few things. Downtown, there's a bunch of red brick and old buildings that we always love. So show you around Kinsley, and then we'll continue heading towards, I guess you would call it, the western half of the United States. One of the things I really liked about the museum was they had this map from 1886, and obviously that was well before this road. It was 40 years before this road, and probably weren't other roads, or hardly any roads. And you can see where the railroads intersected here, and that's why obviously the roads went along those railroads. But just Cool how the town's built up on the railroad. I always love stopping at a county museum like this, and unfortunately, if I did that all the time, I would never be able to get through the trip. But good to stretch the legs here in Kinsley, and but yeah, let's get back on the road. As we approach Dodge City, you can see we'll make a short little detour down to Fort Dodge. I thought that'd be appropriate since it's right there by Dodge City. 50 goes kind of around Dodge City. We want to make sure we hit that historic area, Wild West town of Dodge City, so we'll show you that. And then we go on through, and there's a couple places here where I will kind of follow the railroad when there's not a town to visit. So you can see there at Ingalls, I'll split off just a little bit. And once again, I'm assuming probably the original road went more along that railroad, and it continues on to Garden City, where you see 156, that was the original US 50 North, and that's where it combines with the 50 South that today is US 50. As we are heading out of Dodge City, literally, we're getting the heck out of Dodge. You can't say that very often. But we run into this little area that talks about the Santa Fe Trail, makes it a National Historic Site. I don't know if it's that there's ruts here. It's hard to tell because it's just, undulating hills. And we've been kind of on and off the trail, Santa Fe Trail, for a lot of this trip. And it's been interesting to think this is kind of where, those pioneers and where people were heading back at that time frame. So many people did. And, the terrain gets a little bit hilly here after it was flat for a long time. People don't think of Kansas as having hills, but as you get to the western part, it certainly does. And, they probably started to become challenging. Not like it would be in the future after Kansas, but started to have some ups and downs. So yeah, nice little area. They talk about a lot of the challenges here, and good little area. If you didn't stop in Dodge City and walk around, you can stop here and take a nice little break. We're closing in on the finish of day 2, and it's been a good one. There's been a lot of cool old towns and some historical areas, and I really like that. And I really like Western Kansas as we get out here. It's fun to go to some of these towns I've never been to. I've seen them on maps, and now I can see what they actually were like. Staying the night in Garden City, Kansas, and so we're gonna pop in there, cruise around, see what the downtown area looks like. Through the rest of this trip, I'm gonna try to stay at the best I can do in terms of finding like an older hotel, maybe a historic hotel, or maybe a one that would be from the era of when this road would have been hopping. So we'll see if that's the case. That doesn't always mean it's a nice hotel, and we'll come in. I'll give you a little tour of the room at each hotel and tell you how much it costs, and then get some rest. It's been a long day, and good timing. This is ending as some raindrops are starting to hit my windshield. It looks like it is a good time to stop and let this rain blow through and get ready for tomorrow. Welcome to day 3 on US 50. This is our final day in Kansas. We've got about 70 miles to go till we get till we hit the border and start a new state of Colorado. As we've left Garden City, we really start getting into western Kansas, and the Santa Fe Trail, you can see those dots are the Santa Fe Trail here in Lakin. Once again, the road separates from 50, so as today's US 50 breezes right through there in a straight line, we'll head south, and some interesting places to visit there that follow the railroad that reconnect in Kendall. And then as we get towards the end of the state, there's a couple towns, and our last town before we get to the state line will be Coolidge. Was gonna go up to the Indian Mound, but it's a little bit, the grass is a little bit high and I'm wearing shorts today, so probably not gonna do that, but kind of cool stop. A lot of stuff about the Santa Fe Trail. Definitely will be a trip I need to do someday. This bridge here is a little wobbly, so not as bad as the swinging bridge in Zinc, Arkansas, but it'll keep you focused. made it to the end of Kansas, and now we were literally on the state line with Kansas and Colorado. Behind me, this is the only thing left of a ghost town called Trail City, which is kind of a Wild West town that was literally on the border, and so they didn't have rules back then. So hopefully you enjoyed our trip through Kansas. Hopefully you'll join me next for the trip through Colorado. Welcome to Colorado on US 50. If you were watching the previous videos, you knew we were in Kansas. In Kansas, it went 448 miles, and in Colorado is actually 468 miles, which is the most miles for any state in US 50. So we're gonna be here a while, and we're gonna explore every little dot along the map that we can. Hopefully we find some cool historic places, and I think it'll be a little more undulating with the terrain, I guess, than Kansas probably was. We're starting over here towards Coolidge, right at the border, heading towards Holly, and you'll see little dots on the map like Amity and Barton and Cohen, and some of these places aren't towns. They're communities of some sort that I didn't really find much of, so I will definitely stop at the towns and as many other places as I can, especially here in the beginning of the trip. As we get over to Mohr, you'll see I split the road there a little bit. 50 goes a little bit to the north, and I go a little bit to the south where the Santa Fe Trail goes in between. And I decided to go in the south because there weren't really much in the way of towns on 50 there, and I want to take that road. It was a interesting drive. I wanted to see the John Martin Reservoir, and then I do get connected back on 50 heading towards Los Animas. here there are little communities all along the way, along with some towns, and you see along the map several of those there. We'll stop along the ones that are right on 50 there, and we'll be staying the night in Rocky Ford. Coming to the end of the day, we're going to stay in Rocky Ford, Colorado, so town of about 3,000 people. We're going to swing through and check out the town real quick, and then check into, there's not that many hotels, and this one a little bit, in the reviews, kind of hit and miss, so not the most expensive hotel. We'll see if we get what we pay for. As we leave Rocky Ford here on the, what is it, about the 4th day, I think that we're gonna start seeing some more, possibly some like mountains, or at least certainly more elevation than before. We've slowly been gaining elevation. Even in Kansas, we were at 3,000 feet or so at the border, and I think we're slowly increasing, and I know that we're getting to parts of Colorado that'll get, it's more kind of breathtaking visually as we go. As we head west from Rocky Ford, there's some little communities, small towns, some ghost towns, interesting places. As we get to Avondale, there's a 50 that goes north there along with 96, and then there's the business 50, and they both end up in Pueblo. I kind of do a little bit of both. I take a little bit of the 50 on the north, and then I drop down and see a couple of these communities in the south, and then finally end up in Pueblo. Pueblo, you definitely start feeling like things are starting to change and open up. As we get up to this section here, you can see I take a little bit of the scenic route there, the old Portland Road. And I'm not sure that was ever US 50, but there were some old towns there that have some interesting historical significance. And then I drive back up to connect with 50 at Penrose and continue heading west towards Canyon City. See, this road gets pretty windy, and that's because we'll be going through the mountains. It's a really scenic part of the drive. There's some ghost towns and some recreational areas that we'll drive through and past, and then as we head up there towards the top of the map, that's near Salida, where we'll be staying the night. This part just kind of west of Pueblo for a while is really great. So it's hard to film and also drive and be safe. So that's why I've stopped and got some drone footage. Hope you've enjoyed it. Since this is my last town, got a good bit of the day left. Thought I'd take this little hike up the spiral drive. Actually, I was gonna drive it, but then it's back there. You can't drive any farther, so I don't know. It looks kind of interesting. The town here is about 7,000 feet, so hopefully I'm not huffing and puffing too bad. There's the S. I saw from down there, down the bottom. And there's the whole town of Salida. Here's my second lap around the circle. I started way back there. We are above the S now. Lap 3. We're almost there. Thank goodness. It's windy at the top, even though I'm in a little structure. So, but the hike wasn't, as tough as Machu Picchu or something like that, but still a really cool hike. Really beautiful. Perfect way to end the day. We are leaving Salida, really cool town, heading west, and we're, I guess you could say, in the western half of Colorado, an area I've never been before. So very excited about that. The elevation here is about 7,000 feet, and I think that's going to be about that for a while. As I'm driving out of, Salida, it is beautiful, and so excited for the, I guess you'd say, very scenic drives ahead. We start our day in Salida, heading west through a couple small towns. And then we'll start definitely having some curvy and mountainous roads as we head towards the Continental Divide. Let's try it out. insanely good. Really good and ice cold. So definitely a good place to stop. It looks a little bit sketchy when you walk up to it with all the kind of graffiti stuff. I don't understand that, but good place to stop. It's really good water, and this drive right now is insanely good as well. The road remains very windy. It does flatten out a little bit here as we head west. Our first town of significance of the day is Gunnison. There aren't many towns in this section, but it's very pretty driving through the reservoir there and more mountain driving, and we will hit a couple small communities over towards Montrose. And then we'll actually head north for a little bit, up through Olathe, over to Delta before we head west again. As we head north and west on 50, you see some little communities a few miles to the west of 50, but we're gonna stay on 50. Those are mostly kind of railroad stops and maybe ghost towns, but we're gonna continue on 50. And that'll take us into Grand Junction, which that'll be our stay for the evening. We're rolling up to our destination here in Grand Junction, Colorado. That was a long day. Very, very scenic day. Definitely by far the most scenic so far of the trip. Very beautiful. Let's check out a little bit of Grand Junction and then we'll check into our hotel. Back at it this morning in Grand Junction. We're gonna head west. There's only about 40 miles of Colorado remaining, so we'll see if we can find anything interesting before we cross into Utah. We're gonna try to stay on 2-lane roads as much as we can. You know, the official 50 is along 70, but you know, I prefer the 2-lane roads, and hopefully there's enough of those to get us through the rest of the state, but we'll just have to wait and see. As we leave Grand Junction, you see Interstate 70, and it combines with 50 right here. And then you also see 6, and 6 is the original Route 50, so we're gonna stay on that 2-lane road and just kind of to the north of 50, and that'll take us up and around over to Utah. There's one last thing to see in Colorado before we get to Utah. And I've been on the original US 50, which is great. But to get to it, I got to cut over some real back road areas. So let's head over there. Hopefully we can make it through. We've stopped off at the Travel Through Time hike right here near the Colorado-Utah border. It's kind of a journey through history with dinosaurs and fossils and things like that. So it's supposed to be about a 1.5 mile hike. So I don't know, it's the last thing to do here in Colorado, so let's go check it out. How's it going, dude? So this is interesting. Above here, we'll walk over there, there's a mining claim marker. In 1968, a couple prospectors filed this claim. They marked it with a post up there. And it never got recorded to the Mesa County clerk, so it was never officially recorded. So the claim is kind of a mystery. Some Bureau of Land Management people discovered it in 2003 and just kind of out here in the middle of nowhere. The hike wasn't too bad. It's 80 degrees right now. It's kind of in the morning, 9 a.m. So I'm not a great hiker. I'm more of a walker than a vertical hiker, but it's not too bad. If anybody hikes regularly, it won't be bad at all. So, but yeah, very enjoyable, and right here off of I-70. But because I am going to stay true to US 50, I'm gonna go back that scenic road back over there to cross into Utah. We have reached the end of our trip through US 50 in Colorado. It was a really spectacular drive. Certainly the western half of Colorado is spectacular. I mean, that's about the best word I can use to describe it. And now we're crossing into Utah, and I expect we'll see a lot of the same. You can hear I-70 off into the distance. I'm still here on the original US 50, and you know, when you get to a new state on those interstates, they'll have like big signs, welcome to Utah, or you know, you're leaving Colorado or something like that. And on the back roads like US 50 here, the original US 50, this is what you get. We've crossed into Utah from western Colorado, and the road has gone from asphalt to gravel. And we're still on the original US 50 for a few more miles, and then we'll have to hop back on I-70. But Utah has about 330 miles of US 50. It's the fourth most of all the states that it goes through from east to west. So a lot less towns, a lot more open space. So let's get started in Utah. If you remember from the last video, when we crossed over into Utah, we were on a 2-lane road just north of the interstate. You can see there that the interstate is labeled 76 and 50, but the 2-lane road was the original 50. So that's the way we were coming into Utah. As we cross in, it's called Old Highway Harley Dome because we head into that little community of Harley Dome. And then the original 50 went south. You can see the expressway heading there west in the blue, but we're gonna go on the original road down to Westwater. From Westwater, the original 50 went more directly west, but there's no longer a good road to take that way, so we'll have to head back north and get on the interstate for just a little while. And then we'll get off the interstate at Old Cisco Highway. That's the original US 50 in red heading towards Cisco. Right there where it says 128, that heads south down to Moab, and I'll have a future video showing that scenic drive. But for US 50, it followed the old Cisco Highway, and you can see little railroad stops along the way, and that's what 50 followed over to Thompson Springs. And then here at Crescent Junction, this is kind of today's intersection for heading south in a more direct way down to Moab and Arches National Park. And we'll get back on the interstate there and head west to the first town of the day, Green River. been driving down these roads that were probably US 50 at one point, and I park in the middle of the road, and the car will never come by. There's no houses, there's no businesses. There's really no reason to have this road anymore. But I'm glad they do, because this is the original. I'm pretty sure this was the original US 50 that people took. Kind of sad that it's literally here wasting away. As we leave Green River, it's the last town for a long way. All the way through here, there are no other towns. It's just very scenic driving, very beautiful roads ahead right there. Once we get over where it says Fremont Junction, there's a frontage road that runs along US 50. I stay on the interstate, but you can see the frontage road in the videos. And I think that was probably the original US 50, but in some places you can't drive on it anymore, so I stayed on the interstate. And you can see both US 50, the interstate, you can see the 2-lane road right there, which was also the old Spanish Trail, and eventually it combines into one as we head towards our destination for the night in Salina. I'm trying to make it to my hotel in Salina, but I keep getting distracted by stuff like this. All along this highway, there's these pull-offs and view areas, and even though there's no towns, there are plenty of things to see. Man, this drive through the mountains of Utah has definitely earned the name the Loneliest Road. I mean, for the last 100 miles, there has not been a town, but there's been so much to see, and it's been just me and the road. And so, what a wonderful day exploring eastern Utah. I'm going to stay in Salina, and I'm going to show you the town in the next video because it's getting dark and I want to be able to take my time and show you a little bit of the town. So I'm just going to get checked into the hotel and get some rest and get ready for the western half of Utah in the next video. Good morning from Salina, Utah. We are here at the Camp Salina Prisoner of War Camp. They have a museum and they have, a few different buildings. They have a cemetery here. It's pretty early in the morning, so nothing is open, and so we won't be able to really explore around, try to peek in the windows, see what there is. But we're starting the western half of Utah. So yesterday we went from the Colorado border to here in Salina. And then now we're going to head to the Nevada border today. And there's not very many towns. I've only counted, a half dozen or so towns between here and Nevada, so very wide open. Salina is interesting because this is a kind of a intersection point for a couple of different roads. There's obviously US 50. 70 is also, US 50 at this point. And then US 89 goes north and south. So I did US 89 a couple years ago. And I actually stayed here in this town as well. So kind of a good memory of, I was heading south to Mexico at that point, and now we're heading west to California. We're starting the day here in Salina as we came in our previous video there from the east on 70 and 50 on the interstate. Originally, 50 went north of here and came down on 89. It went actually up to Salt Lake City, which is directly north a little bit. And then later on, it went over to Provo from the east and then came down. And then in the 70s, when I-70 was built, that's kind of when US 50 was rerouted down through here. So, but Salina has always been a point, whether it's from the east here directly or from the north in Salt Lake City. So we're gonna head out, and it becomes, a 2-lane road, and out of town pretty much goes directly north. And it continues north all the way to Scipio, and then kind of zigzags as it combines with Interstate 15 down to Haugen, and then goes back north again. Sometimes I like stopping at these old cemeteries, and sometimes it tells history of towns, and for this one's kind of interesting because this was original pioneers of the town who are buried here, and then no one is buried here after something like in the 1890s, except for if you're a direct descendant of someone that's buried here before that. Even though this is being released much later, I'm actually here on July 24th, and that's Pioneer Day in Utah, celebrating the Mormon pioneers. every year. And so they're in a little town like this with 300 people. They have a parade where all the locals come out and throw candy to the kids. So this part of Utah is basically on US 50, the last town until we get to Nevada. So there's still, 80 some miles left on US 50. So I'm gonna explore around a little bit, maybe just south of US 50 and see what else we can find. We're gonna explore around south of Hinckley a little bit. There's a few towns, as you can see on the map. And then we're gonna go check out over here where it says Great Stone Face. Just south of the town of Deseret is Fort Deseret, and I found this to be a pretty interesting little stop. The fort was built in 1865, and it was during the Utah Black Hawk War, which was mainly between the Mormons of the area here that were settling and a variety of Native American tribes, and it was from 1865 to 1872. The government was busy with the Civil War, and so the Army was not able to help, so they said for the locals to do something to protect themselves, and it actually was quite successful. They built this adobe structure. It was 550 square feet, and it was proved successful when they were negotiating a peace settlement with those Native Americans. On trips like this, I would love to stop as all kinds of places like that are historical places. In fact, there's an old Japanese internment camp not too far north from here, but if I only did that, I would never get to my destination. So just know there are many more places than what I'm showing you, and if I don't go to one of those places, just know that there is limited time in a day, and at some point I got to get to my destination. So but you go these historical roads like this, you can go as fast as you want and get to the end, or you can really kind of putt along and, as I say, get distracted in a good way by everything that's around you. See my car down there. And you can go two different ways. You can go straight up at it, which is very vertical. I came this other way, which is still a good hike, but a little more gradual, thinking I'd be there almost at this point. And I look and I'm like, I still gotta go up quite a bit. Dang it. There it is. Now, some people say this looks like Joseph Smith, leader of the Mormons, and obviously we're in Mormon country. And some people think it's a Native American face. I almost missed it as I was leaving the Great Stone Face there. And then right here, there's a little display. And I thought, I'll pull over and look at it. And there are petroglyphs right there that are thousands of years old, they say. Very cool. I thought that hike was a little bit toasty. Now I'm trying to go over to some massacre site, and you never know if this is a road or not, or if I have to go all the way back around, but let's see. You can see where Great Stone Face is, and those little dashes are gravel and dirt roads. I'm trying to get over to where it says Gunnison Massacre Historical Monument, and then over to US 50. And the roads aren't very good. We'll have to just try to work our way through there to see if we can make it all the way through. So that last one was a road, and then there's supposed to be another road up here. But it's sometimes it's just a rancher's driveway, which it appears this is. So there's no real road to where I want to go. Now back here, what's this? I mean, there's something, but is that where I want to go? That looks like the road I'm supposed to take. Quite the road. I don't know, whenever the phone is shaking, so I'm weeds underneath. It's a rental car. I always try to get a good clearanced vehicle in case of a road like this. I don't know, would you keep going? I know sitting there watching, you're probably like, yeah, go on. But I've definitely had some thoughts about turning around, but I guess I'll just go until I can't go any farther. Hopefully it comes out on the other side. I'm heading towards US 50, but I don't know, we'll see if we actually can get there. Yeah, that was what I was afraid of. This goes down, hard to tell on the camera. Goes down pretty steep. I'll go walk and look, but this is really rough. It goes that way. Well, I think I'm going to turn around. I usually will go about as far as I can take it, and this is probably it. I've been going for miles and miles And yeah, probably smart, turn around, even though it's gonna take a good half an hour to backtrack. But I would like to survive to finish the trip. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna turn around. I think in all the years of driving, that's the first time I've had to turn around where it wasn't private property. You know, sometimes you get to a private property sign, don't drive through, but yeah, usually I can make it on through. And I might have been able to, but you know, taking a chance. It's about 110 degrees and there's no cell phone service out here. And you know, you want to be smart in these situations. So it would have been risky, and I don't think the reward was worth the risk. So we are driving back through the rough desert road, and we're going to connect back with US 50 and head towards Nevada. So I don't know anything about this Gunnison Massacre site. It says 1853, October 26th. There's more information at the Great Basin Museum in Delta, which we passed through earlier today. And this is what I was trying to find when I was going to the middle of nowhere. I looked on the map and the road was going to come out right over here. So that's where it should have eventually come out to. But yeah, I didn't make it. So I'm half curious as to go that far and see what it looks like, but nah. Let's head on west. So this is current 50. And then this is old 50. When we get back on US 50, you can see it goes pretty much south and to the west, but right above that is Old Highway 6 and 50. And so that's the decision I'm making, whether to take US 50, today's route, or to take the old Highway 50. And as you can see, the current version of US 50 is just a long, you know, fairly straight road over to the Utah border. There's no towns. And so I decided to stay on the north to the old dusty road. You might wonder why I would choose to do the gravel road instead of the main US 50, and certainly I want to go on the main US 52 as well. But if this was the original US 50, then probably not very many people have gone this way. Same thing when I did the Oregon Trail last year. I tried to stay as true to the trail as possible. So it probably skipped some of the main roads that people go on today that would follow the Oregon Trail. And I think we're going to get up here to some, maybe go in between some mountains. And I'm assuming that very few people have gone this way, or they have probably ever documented going this way. So what am I missing on the main US 50 for those of you that have gone that way? I know there's no towns until we get to the border. So am I missing anything? Let me know in the comments, and enjoy original Highway 50. That's the way to Death Canyon. I'm kind of curious, but I'm not going to go there today. Things have radically changed on this road. You know, the road isn't bad down here. So I walked down to the bottom to see how the road was, and it's not bad. It's kind of like average. You know, that really rocky part, that was what was concerning. If it's like this, I think I'll go ahead, but maybe I'll fly the drone and see if there's anywhere I shouldn't go. But you worry about the big rocks because that's where you're more likely to get a flat tire, is from those big rocks than anything. So I don't want to turn around unless I have to, but we'll forge ahead. It's spectacular. I don't know the normal way of US 50, but I don't think it looks like this. Jeez. Okay, it looks okay from above. Didn't it look like okay to you? So hopefully it's not too rocky. It looks very scenic. We're gonna take our time though, see if we can get through on the, I guess, the original US 50. Could you imagine going this back in the day? That way is 50, and there's a little side road. Where does this go? I didn't want to drive much farther because these are getting really rocky, but there's supposed to be something up here. Oh my goodness, look at that. Hermit's cabin. So I don't know anything about this place. I saw it on the map a while ago as I was coming through here. I go, it's called Hermit's Cabin, and it was on Google Maps, and thought maybe it'd be alongside the road, but obviously it's not. It is as hidden as it could be, and you just never know what you're gonna see or meet as you walk up here. And wow, I'm so glad I took Old 50 just to see Hermit's Cabin and sign my name. And all I can say is, if you decide to go Old 50, don't do it in a car. Make sure you have some good tires. Make sure you have plenty of clearance. But it'll be worth it if you hike up to Hermit's Cabin. It's awesome. It is so quiet. You can't hear anything. Back on Old 50. skies are threatening a little bit, but everywhere. So no matter which way I would go, it looks like might run into some rain, although straight ahead's not too bad. And also straight ahead is the Confusion mountain range. And since I'm getting towards the end of the day, I think that would be an appropriate place to venture through, because I've been confused to try to figure out where to go most of today. That's where I just came from. That's where I'm heading. I think that's the Confusion range right there. That marks the end of the old 50 through Utah, and Nevada is just right over here, and but it turns off. This is Gandy Road. We have 12 miles down to US 50, which we should, like I said, we should be about on the border, which is where I'm staying tonight, is on the border. So what a drive. Like I mentioned earlier, I've never been on the today's US 50 through Utah, through that stretch. So it may have been just as spectacular, but I thought this old 50 was great. What an experience. That was a lot of fun. Let's head to the hotel. I arrived to the destination tonight, the Border Inn and Casino. It's pretty interesting because it's literally on the border. You can see where the Nevada sign is and the Utah sign, and the casino is on the Nevada side and the hotel is on the Utah side. So I'll show you the hotel since that's Utah, and I guess I'll have to show you maybe the rest of it tomorrow or next week when we enter into Nevada. Not the biggest TV in the world, but when you're the only hotel in town, you can do whatever you want. So I came out, they have this nice little swing right here, and thought I'd watch a nice sunset. And it is kind of the craziest sunset. I've never seen a hole in the sky of sun completely surrounded by clouds. Good morning. We woke up here on the Utah-Nevada state line, if you didn't watch the last episode in Utah, and we're getting ready to head into Nevada. It was an interesting stay on the border, where literally the hotel was in Utah and the casino is in Nevada. So since now we're heading into Nevada, I say we probably try our luck to see how, maybe if we'll have some good vibes and good luck heading into Nevada. This is a pretty cool wall showing all the, or a lot of the locals, and telling the story here of the Great Basin area. I really love this map. It's the Pony Express. Try my luck for the day. Let's see how it's gonna go.
All right.
Just like a used car salesman, took all my money. Welcome to Nevada. We have been through Kansas and Colorado and Utah, and now Nevada is our 4th out of 5 states as we're rolling through US 50. It has over 400 miles, so another long state, and best known on US 50 probably of all the states, because this is considered the loneliest road in America, and even has the signs that say it. They advertise it as part of their tourism, the loneliest road in America. So we'll see. Utah was pretty lonely, so we'll see if Nevada can top that. We're going to start our day right here on the state line border with Nevada and Utah. And as we head west, we're going to dip down into Baker. That is where the Great Basin National Park kind of entrance is, so we're going to check that out. And then once we get back going, there aren't really any current towns for a while, and you see some sites there listed. Those are ghost towns that we are going to visit. A few on the way that are just a little bit east and west, or north and south of US 50, and then we'll head on up to Ely. Talking about ghost towns, this is pretty interesting, learning about some old culture that was here like 700 years ago, and not really a typical ghost town like I would explore, but it's the morning, and I think it's good to kind of loosen up the legs and go for a little walk and check out, the archaeological site. Basically, they found things here, and they found different things from this culture throughout different parts of the United States here, around this region. And they made a nice little trail guide to inform you as you go, and there's little numbers, and you look and you kind of imagine what it used to be. Located right here in Baker is the visitor center for the Great Basin National Park. I would recommend stopping in here. There's some cool things to check out, and the workers were extremely helpful to me in recommending where exactly to drive for what I was trying to do, which is kind of an in and out trip. In my travels, I've happened to come across several national parks. I'm not sure how many. After this, I'll have to look it up, and I'll put it right here. So, you know, I've got a little bit of experience. I've certainly not been to as many as some of my friends and people that's, you know, what one of their big bucket list things are, is to go to the national parks. And how does this one, you know, match up? It's certainly not like Zion and Bryce and Arches National Park, which are some of the more spectacular ones. But also this one's free, so you can just drive right in, and the other ones do cost money. And so maybe your expectations should align with that, you know, it is a free national park, which is pretty rare. It has a lot more trees than I thought. When I was thinking of the Great Basin, I didn't think of the trees, but I'm not familiar with this area at all. It goes from less than 7,000 feet on this drive to over 10,000 feet. So you're really climbing quite a bit, and it does have some pretty spectacular views. Unfortunately, a lot of the trees kind of get in the way of some of the views. It's probably good while you're driving to not be distracted by just looking, you know, like right there, and I'm trying to drive and it's narrow roads. So stop and get out at the overlooks and scenic views, and there's a few of them. And there's hikes and there's things like that all over, so I'm sure that you can spend a weekend here having a lot of fun. But definitely not at the level of some of those grand national parks, that if you've ever been to those, but still very cool. And the price is right. Actually, the drive down the park from, you know, you drive up and then you turn around and come back down. The drive down might be better because you can really see things, see the perspective of the park. As you're going up, you really, you know, you're just kind of climbing and you can't really see it, but from the above, driving down, it's pretty cool. We're going to head back to US 50. We're going to just go a little bit north and south along the way as we head west, and we're going to look for some ghost towns. And on this video, I'm going to show, you know, just to kind of go in and show you what a few of them are. And then and later on, I'll be maybe making some videos more significant of these towns. So make sure to check back for that. Maybe as soon as next week. We've stopped here on US 50 and there are two signs. There's one for Taylor right there that goes in that direction. And then over here talks about the Ward mining district. So we're gonna go check out both of them. As we leave Ely, there are some ghost towns there as well, and we're going to check those out. And from here, it really starts getting its reputation as the loneliest road. Just wide open highway all the way over to Eureka, and that's where we're going to stay for tonight. We've reached our destination of Eureka for the day. Unincorporated community, which is interesting, and it's got a lot of old buildings in it. So we'll show you around that real quick, and then we'll check into the hotel. Good morning. We continue our excursion on US 50 through towards the middle of Nevada. Starting here in Eureka, and what a cool little town to stay for the night. I mean, it feels like, you know, a moment in time in the, you know, late 1800s here. So I am going to still try to, you know, off of US 50 here and there, a couple miles. The first one here is right near Eureka, a place called Ruby Hill. Used to be a mining, you know, is a mining ghost town, used to be a mining town. Some of these mining ghost towns are on like their second, third, fourth iterations. You know, there's very few things left from the original Ruby Hill, but then people would come back and try to mine it. And actually there's people here, it looks like they're starting again. There's work being done today, but then there's remnants left over from over 100 years ago. So it's pretty fascinating learning about all the mining history in Nevada and all the ups and downs and ups and downs and ups and probably downs all these towns go through. Leaving Eureka, it's more of the loneliest road, as there are no other towns along the way. And just off the edge of this map is going to be Austin, and that's where we're going to end this video. We're not going to stay there for the night, but that's about halfway through the state. Our next stop is the Hickory Petroglyph Recreation Area. And petroglyphs are, you know, old carvings, sometimes prehistoric carvings in rocks, like you see right there. And unfortunately, there wasn't any brochures when I got there. I was the only person there. There were no cars, nothing. And so I didn't quite know what I was looking for, but there was a lot of awesome rock formations, and I did find some of the petroglyphs as I was walking around. It was, once again, very hot, and but the hike wasn't too long. It was maybe a mile. There's several different little paths you can walk around, and once again, seeing things like the carvings right there. I found this to be a nice little stop after some long driving. And some of these, you know, some of these sites are dated back like 10,000 BC, so pretty cool to check that out. This was probably the most significant one right here at the end of the hike. All kinds of cool little drawings to see. The Loneliest Road is living up to its name, and it's just beautiful. You go from one mountain range to another with big, long, straight drives, and then these really interesting towns and ghost towns and mining areas that you find throughout. So we're going to finish this day on over to Fallon, and then once we get there, there's going to be more population from there until California, so more towns, and so this is maybe the last long, loneliest stretch of the drive. As we leave Austin, it is wide open road for quite a while. No towns and really not much in terms of historical sites to see until we get down to Cold Springs. And then I think an original version of 50 went down towards where it says Eastgate. So we're gonna at least make a little detour over there through the three gates, Eastgate, Middle Gate, and Westgate. And then now we're back on 50, right through the Fallon Naval Air Station. You'll notice a lot of white kind of sand areas, which is right before we get to our stay for the night in Fallon. We're pulling into Fallon, Nebraska. Fallon or Fallon, I think it's Fallon. And it's the largest town that I will have gone through since Colorado. Way back there in Fruita, Colorado. It'll be a metropolis compared to some of these places we've been going through. I was not able to find like a classic historic hotel that I've been staying in, you know, along the way. So the best I could do was I found it seemed like a decent deal on a Super 8, and I'm just gonna crash there. We are only 2 days left of our trip on US 50, and this will be the last part of Nevada. So we're gonna go from here. We're actually gonna stay in South Lake Tahoe, which is basically on the Nevada-California border. Leaving Fallon, there is a alternate version of 50 that goes to the north right there, up to Fernley, and then eventually over to Reno. But we're gonna stay on the main 50, which heads south towards Silver Springs. And then as we get down here, this is where the population centers of Nevada kind of start. We are gonna explore these ghost towns in another video, but not in this video. So you'll see some of those cities in that area in a future video. Then we go down to Carson City, which is obviously one of the bigger cities in the state. Once we get through that city, you see a very winding road on 50 there over to Lake Tahoe, and we take that on down to the state line. One of the strangest stops on US 50 is here at the Republic of Molossia. Molossia is what's called a micronation, which is a political entity whose representatives claim they belong to an independent nation, but lack legal recognition by any sovereign state. It's kind of a tongue-in-cheek way of someone saying that their house or their property is an entire country of its own. And a guy named Kevin Baugh is the president of Molossia, and this is his home, and all this here is done up to make it look like his own country, which is Molossia. There's a website, a YouTube channel. I've watched videos about it before. I thought it would be a fun place to come, and right here is the border between USA and Molossia. You're not supposed to go in there because it was closed, so don't tell Kevin that I was halfway in Molossia. This is Old 50 that goes up there, up that hill. That's Old 50, and it comes down and goes that way towards downtown Dayton. We have entered Lake Tahoe area, and our finishing point is going to be South Lake Tahoe for the day. It's actually in California, just over the state line, so you'll have to watch the next episode, which is California, which is the last day, the last video of the US 50 trip here, if you want to figure out where I stayed. So I'm not big into cliffhangers, but I didn't feel like it'd be appropriate to show the hotel in California here in Nevada. So check out that in the next episode. That's Nevada over there, casinos. I'm in California, right here. Good morning and welcome to California. This is our final state of the western half of US 50 that we're going here. And instead of breaking this up into 2 videos like I've done with all the previous states, this is just going to be 1 video because it's just a little bit over 100 miles. And Sacramento is the end point. So that'll be our stopping point for today and for the video. You know, there's a lot of population as you get towards Sacramento. And kind of like Route 66, probably not to that extent, but as we get closer, it will definitely be in the city. So less of the Loneliest Road vibe, but for a little while, I do think it's still going to be pretty, you know, rural and wide open and curvy roads and things like that for a little while. So let's get our last day started here in California. We're starting our California trip on US 50 there where it says State Line. And we head through South Lake Tahoe and then turn left, which is south, and you'll see there are pretty winding roads and there's some small little communities as we're then turn and head mostly west. The road continues to be very scenic through some pretty rural areas, and it stays that way until we start hitting more populated areas around Placerville. as we approach our destination of Sacramento, it's a pretty busy highway, and you can see all the population north of US 50, and there really aren't a lot of towns along US 50. We'll mostly just kind of drive on in all the way to Sacramento, and US 50 ends right there where it says West Sacramento. Anticlimactic finish as we're rolling towards the end of the trip here. It's just the official start of the western terminus, I guess you could call it, here in Sacramento, is just on the other side of these overpasses. So that's the end of the trip. Final day in California, finishing here in Sacramento. The first half of that drive was very scenic, and then the last half, certainly just a lot of city driving. So what did you think of Highway 50 from Kansas to California? I really enjoyed it a lot. This is the fourth trip I've documented, and it probably falls right in line with the other ones. It was a lot of fun. I learned a lot. It was probably more scenic than I thought it would be. Certainly lived up to its name of the Loneliest Road in Nevada, and I would say also in many parts of Utah. It would be interesting to do the other half of it from Kansas, basically Kansas City to Maryland. I think it would be less wide open and mountainous and scenic, but I'm sure it would be interesting as well. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I've wanted to do this trip for a long time, and probably my favorite parts were the more wide open places, and then finding some of the little towns along the way, some of them that maybe used to be bigger and now they don't have much left to them, but there's still something there to check out. So maybe if you ever decide to take this trip, you can stop in a few of the places I've shown you. I like to do these road trips in the summer, and it helps kind of clear my mind and gets me ready for going back to my full-time job working, and it's really refreshing and gives you some perspective, being able to get out and see our great country. So seeing half of it from Kansas to California really shows you how diverse it is in so many different ways. So I really enjoyed it. Hope you did too. Thanks for following along, and we'll see you on the next trip. Wise man. Wichita State. This is my kind of town. What's up, Doc? It's kind of a cool angle. I just threw my phone down. Come on. This is, without a doubt, the most spectacular. Jesus. Ouch. What did I step on? Jeez. I got a long way to go. Gotta stop after 20 seconds. Hey, buddy. I get messages from people about like, you need to wear a hat and sunscreen. I got sunscreen on. I'll put on a hat. It just doesn't look very good. Right? I look like an idiot. For those of you that have never seen a tumbleweed up close, that's what they look like growing. There's one right here that tumbled over here. Go with your family. Man. Ghost town with a water tower, my kind of place. We're definitely not in Kansas anymore. Whew. Out of shape.